All right, here we go. King Amin of Essex bringing us to the second episode of season 3, the championship rounds. I'm flying solo without my co-host today, Jay. He's in Florida, probably catching some marlin, maybe not. But I'm about to catch up on some boxing, some wrestling, on everything else with my man, Double M, Mr. Mario Munguia. Thank you for coming and joining me today, brother.
Of course, bro. The king, ready to rock and roll, bro. You doing your thing. I love it, man. I'm so glad that I get to be here and chop it up with you. I'll be honest, in the last 5-6 months, not chatting with you and not kicking it and not, throwing up topics and chopping them up has been one of the things I've missed. But yeah, man, you're doing your thing. I love it. I love seeing how hard you work, man. I've always known you as a hard worker, and you put in this time, man. It shows it, big dog.
Listen, I appreciate it, man. So here we are. Let's get right to it and catch up.
Let's do it.
When I sent you the first article, it's a guy we've been watching for a long time. And we've had our opinions on him. I could honestly say a couple of years ago when I first started jumping into the scene and blogging and kind of chronicle it, I had an opinion on one Mr. Tank Davis. I didn't think he was serious. I thought he was, being a little bit immature. But as I think now, I'm saying, and as we're saying it, that was 2 and 3 and 4 years ago. Now he's got this new maturity, newfound stardom. We've seen an article from Boxing Scene. They're talking about, has he arrived? Is he there? What do you think of Tank Davis, man?
Listen, I think that what we got Saturday was a couple things, right? Number one, we got the reassurance that he is a star. He is a star in the sport of boxing, okay? And when he fights, you take notice. This is a guy, okay, and there are very few in boxing today that you just shouldn't go against. And obviously UFC and other, they're not going to pull their cards when they can. If they're not going to do it against Canelo or the NBA championship, they're not going to do it with anybody. But Tank is heading to that level of superstardom. People care. Okay. He's one of the few in boxing right now that's really translating with a commercial casual fandom that has not liked boxing previously or never was into it or wasn't alive. These are people that don't know who the fuck Diego Corrales is, don't know, the lineage of Mayweather and can break it down, don't understand Pacquiao Mayweather and what that was, don't even get Canelo Bivol. All they do is watch the fighters that they want to watch, just like I do with NBA finals, just like I do with soccer. Same thing. I'm a casual in both, and they want to do that. And Tank is the guy. Now I'm going to say one thing about his performance. Okay. I wasn't going to say this. I swear to God, I have not been on any podcast to say this because I've been so scared to say it, but man, we on the King show. So I'm going to be real. And I'm going to say this.
Give it to me.
I think Tank was playing with them, and I'm going to go a step further. You remember, and I know you remember because you have been in the boxing game for such a long time, podcasting and everything, that what we used to say about Triple G. And not we, but what people used to say, right? He's letting them hit him. He's trying to sucker Cotto in. He's trying to sucker Canelo in. So he's playing with them. He's letting them hit him and giving us action fights. Okay. That's not the reasoning, but I'm going to tell you, I know that if Tank's watching his mom on the screen and having a conversation with her and not listening, I'm not saying he didn't take Rolly serious.
Sure.
I'm saying there was never one point in that fight where he didn't know that one punch was going to completely change the outcome. I'm not saying he set it up that way, although he did set up that punch very well.
He did.
But I am very willing to say this because I said it about Triple G. I thought there were times where Triple G was allowing his defense to be suspect, I guess, for the offense to be built for the other fighter, so it didn't look so one way. That's not what I'm saying with Tank. But what I am saying is he was not in there with someone who was at his level. And credit to Rolly, he did all the things that he should have done. But when you're not on that level, you get exposed, and that's what happened Saturday night.
And so, Mario, I want to bring it to a technique standpoint, and I'm sure as a southpaw, you can understand this. There's a certain vulnerability that you have as a southpaw to where you sacrifice an element of defense for the counter and to capitalize. So when we look at a fighter like Terrence Crawford, that's how he know he getting ready to tear shit up. He go from conventional to southpaw. So Tank in that, like we're talking about, we watched him set this punch up. Yes. I think you're absolutely right. Whether we want to call it an allowed vulnerability, toying, playing, carrying, he allowed a certain level offense from Rolly in order to capitalize in the way he did. So yes. That speaks to a certain level of boxing IQ. Absolutely. That's what draws in the stardom, because while the kids are just excited, he know Lil Durk, he know these people, we're excited because we're able to pick up on those nuances. You know what I'm saying? So I think
well said.
That makes it just, you know, a real big, and with an opponent like Rolly, what we saw is maybe not the best in technique, but the pairing and personality, you know, yes. Somebody that matched him in terms of fearlessness. So, you know, in-house, people like to use that word. It was an in-house opponent, blah, 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 blah. But this is boxing, and we know in-house is a part of matchmaking and so on and so forth. So we don't want to take credit away. Us hardcores can do that. We take credit away. We start peeling away. But I think if we just give this young man his flowers, he'll continue to mature. He'll continue to show us that he's primed for this stage, and he'll do those antics. And then in a funny way, not mocking, but flattery is the most sincere form of, you know what I'm saying? Like complimentary.
Absolutely.
Floyd was just doing that in that sparring session he ripped people off for in Dubai, talking to the crowd.
Yeah,
so now you got Tank doing it against a live dog.
Oh yeah,
to the crowd
against a live dog who was putting rounds together.
Come on,
and gaining momentum. You know, you can say what you want about Rolly, and I certainly said plenty, because and here's the thing, it wasn't that I was so down on Rolly, it's that I believe in Tank. I do, and I never have it. When people approach me and say, well, where is he on your pound for pound list, that's a different question. I know that he is a pound for pound talent. He could be number one pound for pound for all we know. Does he have the resume that, you know, allows me to, you know, put him ahead of guys like Crawford or even guys like Donaire who've been there forever? Like, no, it can't be. But when you look at systematically what he's done to his opponents, that power is authentic. It's genuine. But not just that, his willingness to engage in fights is, it is technical. You know, it is. He's not just going out there. I mean, yes, I do think he was looking for one punch a little too much in this fight. But again, that game plan didn't falter him. You know, if he's losing, and by the way, one last point real quick is that, you know, you got a guy like Bivol who beats Canelo, and everybody keeps talking about, you know, Bivol or the guy who beat Canelo. Like, when you have you know, Sports Center top 10 highlight, you can lose all those other rounds. I'm not saying you should or you know, whatever, but I'm saying that it doesn't matter what happened. Now, the hardcores are going to say, well, Rolly was putting rounds together. I had Rolly up. He was losing to Rolly, so he'd never beat, you know, Lomachenko. Oh, he'd never beat maybe even Ryan Garcia. No, but that's bullshit, because at the end of the day, he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He knocked that man unconscious. And guess what he did? He gave a meme, a Jake Paul meme, but to a professional fighter.
Yes.
Who's undefeated and has that credibility. Great job, but he's got to fight now the best, because he is one of the best.
Absolutely. And I like where you took it. Now he has to fight the best. Now he has to begin to put together the resume like Shakur did. And we can talk a little bit about Shakur's observation of that fight.
Sure.
We can talk, you know, about him in that conversation. If he gets, you know, I don't want to say a herring, because herring out, but if he gets a 135 pounder, and you heard a lot of people saying, well, not a lot of people, I think on Twitter, you know, as I immerse in that Twitter sphere, I like the idea of Tank with the rematch against Cruz, and then you have Rolly and Ryan Garcia. Rolly and Ryan Garcia, and then the winner of that gets Tank.
Okay.
That brings together the star power for boxing. It gives us a card that's competitive with what UFC can present when they put a female champion, another championship fight, and then another championship fight. You know what I'm saying? Definitely. So I think business-wise, they should try to bring that together, plus along the lines of legacy. We don't want to see that log jam at 135 that we seen at 147. at the nexus of the boxing universe. All right.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to see that. So, going back a bit, Shakur mentioned, he said, I think I'm the better fighter. Well, if that's going to be an argument for both of these guys to get on the pound for pound and who's better than who, they're going to have to fight, So, what do you think of the prospects, or at least Shakur teasing that challenge out there?
Listen, those are the fights. Those are the fights that we have to look forward to in our future. Guys like Devin Haney, guys like Shakur, guys like Tank, these guys that are able to mix it up, okay? They're going to be some of the best fights we'll ever see in the next 10 years, okay? And I don't think it's too early to start the dream match. Now, here's what I don't want to happen. I don't want it to get so intense that hardcore start to see past the idea of what it is. Like, we're not calling for Shakur Tank right now.
Sure.
Nobody's saying that fight makes any sense financially for either of those guys. But what it does do is give us something to look forward to. In a sense, that's kind of the issue with Canelo, is that he's gone on this route that really doesn't have any huge commercial names. He's completely voided himself of those commercial names in America by surpassing those divisions. And now it's like every single person, it's like there's no Chavez Whitaker, there's no, De La Hoya Vargas, there's no, these big fights that we look forward to. But now we're starting to see the seedlings, and we've seen them, sure, but now they seem more authentic. Now I feel like the Ryan Garcias of the world have to prove they belong with Tank. Definitely. Because now we see Tank is a financial star. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that he could have the most momentum changing power in the division and the division above, perhaps.
Man, great. And I can't wait to see what's coming up next. We got Kambosos. We didn't put it in the play, but let's just, deal with it, sure, man. Kambosos and Haney. My only thoughts on it is this, and we talked about fights for the next 10 years. That's why I'm glad we got 35, 40, and 47, because what I feel like Haney, unless he stops Kambosos, he's going to have to do the rematch. And yeah. I feel and I think that if he beats Kambosos in the first match and Kambosos wants to rematch, now Kambosos could potentially back out of the rematch if he gets beat so handedly.
Sure.
He could say it ain't worth his time. But I feel like Haney might need to move up to 40. I feel like 35, trying to wait for the Tank fight or for the Shakur fight, it could get too complicated, and we can get all that A-size slut talk that I don't like. I feel real. Like if he moves up to 40 and just competes with the Subriel Matiases of the world, sure, the Elvises of the world, sure, whoever they got at 140, and do that and just work that out, then by the time they can meet on something different. But what do you think about Kambosos and Haney coming up this week, man?
This is a great fight. It's a great fight. And in a lot of ways, the style is very interesting. I think the winner of this fight is whoever dictates the pace and sets it from the beginning. If Devin Haney comes out and he's more methodical and he's picking his shots, and Kambosos falls into that trap, I don't know how he gets out. I really don't. But if Kambosos is pressing the action and making him feel uncomfortable, well, then we're talking to, they talk a lot about in football, like, oh, what's the game script? Sure. The game script's going to dictate certain plays at certain times. And that's what I feel like this fight is. What is going to be the fight script? Yeah. Because both of these guys have levels. Both of these guys have shown in real fights that they can dig deep, that, they can, change up, that they can come back from momentum that's been taken from them, specifically Kambosos. But again, it goes back to the log jam, because like, dude, this is, and I knew we'd talk about this, and I'm so glad that you brought it up, because this is the log jam. It's like, oh, Lomachenko's the best in the world, the best ever. Oh, he's the greatest. He's the monster. He's the machine. And then he loses to Tio. And well, now Tio's the monster. Now Tio's number 3 pound for pound. No, he just replaced because he's just as good. And then he loses to Kambosos. You know what I'm saying? So it's like this whole thing, and you know, we can get into the whole like Devin Haney and Bill not being able to be there, and kind of the fuckery that's been going on with Devin, because you know, I don't feel like anybody ever treats Devin with the respect he deserves. And I'm going to say this right now. The reason why him and that team and his dad deserve respect is because they understand this game.
Yes.
They know what they have to do, and they're doing it.
Absolutely.
What about the rest of the world, like Ryan Garcia's and these guys that are, you know, A-side sluts and all that talk that we hear? And what do? They hide behind this money. They hide behind these promoters. They hide behind these networks and use them as excuses. Here's Devin Haney, who is getting paid handsomely, who is being treated so well by Eddie. And guess what? I'm off to ESPN. If that's where the fight is, if this is how I prove that I'm the best in the world, then let me prove it and take that A side, not let it be handed to me for beating. I mean, well, Ryan Garcia beat Campbell, great, but does that make him an A side? Like, does that make him the best? No, selling tickets does, fine, but this is still a sport. And at the end of the day, Devin Haney is doing this like a sport, and I respect that. And I don't think anybody else does. I really don't, or not enough. I think
not enough. And you know, you gave me chills, no bullshit, bro, because you know, all I could think of, Devin Haney's out in Australia, like Jake from Training Day, when he had to go to the jungles and go see Lonzo. Remember Lonzo had him set up?
Yeah.
Yo,
he had to go by himself. He's like,
Haney coming through the airport, like coming through the jungles.
Yo, they flipping birds. Oh, Devin's here. Yo,
you know what I'm
that's
saying?
Crazy. You're right. That's a metaphor right there, bro.
Yo, the determination and the mental toughness. So when you talk about having so many things against you, I think the crowd, Kambosos, nothing. I think Devin, because of his willingness to leave his comfort zone on so many occasions, even developing his career.
Yes.
He's been groomed for this. And I'm so glad you made that point. More respect, more acknowledgement, more recognition needs to be given to Devin Haney. I don't know why it falls so short, man, but
they like to throw out that email paper champion shit. And it's like, in what way is that his fault? Like, going through and we're not going to go through the minutia of that, 2 years of bullshit, but you know, there were a lot of aspects of it that were out of his hands. But ultimately, what does this all come down to? Ryan Garcia had the chance to fight him, didn't want to, passed. Lomachenko had the chance to fight him, didn't want to, passed. Teofimo had the chance to, and now I know Kambosos was in the way, that was a problem. But still, nobody has stopped to give Devin Haney a chance. So let's respect Kambosos as well. And even though this wasn't his first chance, he wasn't trying to fight Devin Haney out the gate either. You know, he wanted that Lomachenko fight, and he probably wanted that Ryan Garcia fight before. But this is what boxing should be. If you're the best, then the guy that we think is the best, because that's what we talked about with Tank, right? Do I have him as a top 3 pound for pound? No. But if somebody came up to me and said, hey, do you think he's skilled enough to be? Absolutely.
He's on his
way.
Let
him prove it. Let him prove it. Line up the fights and let him prove it. And I think he could. You know, a guy like Devin Haney, I feel the exact same way. Let him prove it. But ultimately, that's what's the beauty of this division right now. There's so many dogs that records are going to become, I hope, like not obsolete, but not as important to be undefeated. It just really shouldn't be the end all break all.
And I'll take it a step further. Who you lost to, it matters.
It matters.
Because it doesn't matter if you lost to Loma. You lost to Loma. If you lost to Shakur, look how well Joet Gonzalez has been doing as of late. You know what I'm saying? Losing to Shakur. If you lost to the top guy, why the fuck would you disrespect that when another guy was scared to even get in line for that?
Exactly. You're going to respect the guy who's undefeated because he maneuvered his way, because he politicked his way to undefeated status. But what about the guy who's going out there every time and fighting those 50-50 fights? You know, the guys who want those 50-50 fights. Those are the guys that we should support, not hold down, not bring down. And it's an important fight. I'll be honest. You know, the card is kind of ass itself. Like, this is a situation where it's like, okay, it's ESPN. This is all about the main event. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is all about the main event. and they are going to have the big stage. They're going to have eyes on them. ESPN, no pay-per-view. I really think that Tank Rolly fight, even though I understand the economics, I know why it couldn't be pay-per-view, or why it couldn't not be pay-per-view. But this right here, this is an opportunity to send Devin Haney into a stratosphere that would otherwise take 2-3 years, and the sponsorship deals, everything, it's all riding on it. For him to have to be without his father, a person that's always been there for every fight by his side.
Terrible.
It's unfair, man. It's unfair.
But, speaking in a similar tone and switching gears, but we often moving because deserving respect, the best fighting the best, right? And call outs, doing what it takes. Clarissa Shields did what it took. She went over to the UK. She jumped in Savannah Marshall's face. She begged for that fight. Savannah Marshall was supposed to be in New York the night of the Serrano-Taylor fight. Yep. I was in the building for that fight. Thank the boxing gods, right? But I'm saying to myself, this fight is as big as the other fights we've been talking about. Why has this fight, a former Olympian, 2-time gold Olympian, that's done something that the men have not done, why is this fight not getting the respect and the recognition? Against another Olympian, against another national gold medal Olympian, I believe, or silver medal Olympian. Why is this fight not getting the respect?
Who also is the only person she's ever lost to. I mean, that story alone, that narrative alone should sell the fight. But the problem is this: Serrano-Taylor was never even as big as it ended up being. It was Jake Paul. It was Eddie Hearn. It was the
Madison Square Garden
even. Madison Square Garden. It was The Rock tweeting. It was them getting a package. They made it the biggest fight in women's history. It wasn't just the biggest fight, because all the fight fans that I know that are casuals had no clue who either of them were. And so for this, and by the way, those same casuals that didn't know either of them, they know Clarissa. Sure. They know her. And you know what they know her for? They know her for her Olympic wins, like you said. They know her for being in the news, for being undisputed. And they know her for switching over to MMA. I think because the loss in MMA, somehow people, and again, these are people that really should watch Amin show weekly. They should watch, D-Style show weekly, Maestro, TBV, the people that are going to teach you why that makes no difference. Why Clarissa Shields is the same fighter, perhaps the greatest women fighter of all time, and maybe one of the best all time, regardless of sex. How many people have won? I understand the women's division is deep, but ultimately, I don't think it's going to be as big. I don't. And it's not that I mean, I want it to be. I want every event to pass every event. And I think that them fighting, it's the second biggest fight of women in women's history. But what it does is it includes the greatest fighter. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
And I think you hit on something so poignant. The Taylor Serrano fight was packaged as the biggest fights in women's boxing.
Man, you said that perfectly. You're right.
But perhaps this fight, in terms of, just true competitive nature, true backstory, and the weight of it with, arguably, like you said, the greatest women's fighter, I think this could be the biggest fight. Now, just kind of meshing in the other topic that we had, I can honestly say the most beautifulest fight will be Michaela Mayer and Elisa Baumgardner. That will be, and again, pardon me, I'm a married man, I'm a good guy, but I like cars. I look at any car. These women, if they now, and let me draw it together, if they package this fight, because we have to look at the Serrano-Taylor fight, how it was packaged. It was packaged based on nationality. It was packaged based on, the popularity and things, right?
Very much so, yes.
But respectfully, I think it's fair to package the Mayer-Baumgardner fight on how attractive these women are. I think it's fair to package the fight on the championship medal and what's on the line. You know what I'm saying? What do you think?
I think you're 100% right. Here's the thing, right? Like, we live in a society today where, everybody's quick to, argue points. and make certain like political stances and not understand the actual argument, and we're not saying, well, we should, make this like mud wrestling or like the Divas era WWE.
Because it's still boxing.
That. At the end of the day, people sexualized Oscar De La Hoya. That was his gimmick for the most successful aspects of his career. Maybe not financially, but in terms of height, right?
Look at Anthony Joshua.
Exactly. I mean, every star that we, is building at this current time and in this current climate in boxing, there is some sort of, eye candy appeal to it. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of sports. You know what I mean? Like Tom Brady isn't Tom Brady if he looks like Pumpkinhead. I'm sorry. It's just not the case. And these two women are aesthetically attractive. Yes. This isn't a thing like, oh man, I want to bang one down. Like, no, that's disrespectful shit. What I'm saying and what I think you're saying is that this is a chance for us to do in boxing. I mean, what the UFC did, and they paraded around their beautiful women, Van Zant, and a lot of these were booked a certain way. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that if at the end of the day, the bottom line is increased, and that bottom line is their dollars. And that's what makes the most sense. And people need to pay attention to this. And these three fights, right? The one we just had and the two that we're talking about, this is what elevates women's boxing. You see what I'm saying? Like everybody talks about how, MMA, it was Ronda Rousey, but it wasn't just Ronda Rousey. Holly Holm played an important part of that. Amanda Nunes might play an even bigger, maybe, I don't know, probably not, but
she did with her win over Chris Cyborg. That was very big.
Chris Cyborg as well. Like there were, it takes everyone fighting each other and making women's MMA a thing to talk about. When the women are fighting each other in boxing and these fights are getting done, it raises the profile of everybody. Look at what's happened with Serrano Taylor. Both of them came out looking great. Absolutely. Both of them won that night. Maybe maybe only one of their hands got raised, but ultimately both benefited from that night. And nobody looks down on either because they fought their hearts out. And the best were in the ring. The best. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? And neither of them got blown out. It was a beautiful fight. And I pray that both of these fights turn out just the same.
And let me, we got about 5 minutes left, but I want to talk about something because you brought up Paige Van Zant, right? She's wrestling now, right?
I caught it. I caught Double or Nothing. Yeah. Let's
talk a little bit about wrestling because, and hopefully the fans get to see us, build on it a little bit more moving forward, man.
That would be great.
Come on.
Down for it.
What wrestling, man, right now, CM Punk just beat Adam Page for the championship,
for the title.
What are you thinking, man? Because everybody's expecting a heel turn. What are you thinking?
I think it would be a mistake for a heel turn right away. I think that this is the mentality, right? Wrestling, as much as it's changed, you can say evolved in certain ways, de-evolved in certain ways, if that's a word, I don't even know. But the point is that certain aspects of this have never changed. And one of those aspects is putting the title on your main draw, on your biggest star. They did it with Hulk Hogan many, many times, right? They did it with Bret Hart. They did it with
Shawn Michaels.
And guess what they did? They did it with Roman Reigns. Look at how long it took Roman Reigns to finally get over. They stuffed him down our throats, but they knew that ultimately Roman Reigns was going to be the guy that was going to transcend in a way that, I'm sorry, Seth Rollins hasn't. Kevin Owens hasn't. These guys have missed the mark. And I'm not saying it's their fault. I think bad booking plays a huge part. In no way am I saying Roman Reigns is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. But what I am saying is that he is the man, and they put the title on him. CM, exactly. And so CM Punk is in that same position, the biggest star in that company. And they put the belts on him. It's smart.
And here's where I like to touch on a little bit, man, because I got it. And hopefully Jim Cornette and Brian Last hear this. Shout out to Kenny Bolin, all them guys, man, all the old timers, Bill Body. Listen, man, Kenny Omega, I don't give a fuck what anybody says about him. For as unclassically trained as you guys allege that he is, look at what he's done for wrestling.
Oh,
It
yeah.
wasn't so much as Chris Jericho to me as it was Kenny Omega who bridged the gap between New Japan and wrestling in the United States.
Well said.
It was Kenny Omega
Not
who
enough
did
people
that.
say that.
And let me say this, I'm gonna get real geeky on y'all. You have to be, with all what you see with Nia Jax and people getting potatoed and all the craziness you see in AEW, right?
You're right.
Everyone has trusted Kenny Omega. So never mind, you don't like the V triggers or you think he's dangerous. Every single wrestler has trusted him to V trigger him, even off of the top of the fucking ropes onto a chair or through a table. You can trust that man.
Including probably the greatest wrestler right now, Bryan Danielson. Like, I mean, that right there, we everybody, when they make that rematch, it is going to be one of the most sought out matches in AEW history, in wrestling today. Okay. But CM Punk, Kenny Omega, that's like in 2018, we would have been creating them in video games saying, oh man, how awesome would that have been one day? Well, one day is coming. Whether he premieres at Forbidden Door, I pray that he comes out tonight. I really do, because I want him at Forbidden Door having some sort of angle. But getting Omega to that title challenge is going to be I'm not saying it's going to be Rock Austin, but it's going to be one of the biggest matches of AEW.
The build
history.
to it. We still got Will Ospreay in play, man.
Oh
you get what I'm saying?
Oh my God, dude.
Come on, man.
Come on, bro. Come on. Who do you even at this point even care for Roman Reigns to, they're mistreating Bobby Lashley terribly. He should have already gotten, been the next guy in line with Roman, maybe Drew, but there are a laundry list of people that I want to see CM Punk fight. And some of them are real. I would like to see him MJF challenge for the title again. Like, it's just endless.
And real quick, how great is MJF that we barely even talk about his ring work?
Barely. And he's great. I mean,
excellent.
Listen to me. You know how many people could look as good as he did in a squash match? He was excellent. Excellent. Just played that heel role to a T. Would I like to see him get a little more offense? Sure. But ultimately, it worked. It played out the way it was supposed to play out. And the man did his job. He's a professional. And here's the other part about it. We know him well enough to know that this all could be a work. All this, did he leave AEW? Is he going to WWE? I honestly have no doubt that there could very well be 2, maybe 3 people in the entire world that know the truth. And I think that's part of the reason why it's been so silent, because they're like, oh man, we completely misjudged how people were going to take this. You know what I mean? And it blew up, but it also could not be a work. That's the beauty of him. The best things in wrestling have always been the gray area, whether we don't know it's real, NWO, Stone Cold, all that stuff seemed real. This seems real. And that's why people are resonating.
And so we got about a minute left, Mario. We ain't going to give it all away for free. We're going to make them come back because we have to get this wrestling thing started. I want to thank each and every one of you for checking this one out and giving us a thumbs up. Give us a like, share something in the comments. Mario Munguia, thank you for joining me. I'm King Amin Of Essex 1 on Instagram. Mario, if you want to give people your information where they can find you, my brother.
Yeah, at Mario Munguia on Twitter, at Mario Munguia on Instagram, Mario Munguia on Facebook. And infighting is I'm gonna start I'm working on scripts, I'm working on videos. I want to package. I love podcasting. I always want a podcast, but it's like you can only do it you could do it every day if you want it, but that in between time, I really want to put out some really well thought out type videos. And so that's what I'm working on right now. And yeah, man, I appreciate it. Love chopping it up. Great show, man. Keep on doing what you're doing, for real.
Listen, guys, I will have Mario back. I need this man, brother. Much love, man. I appreciate you, man. We'll talk behind the scenes.
Peace.
Peace.